Hey, welcome back to my garden. What this video is about is once upon a time I was raising lettuce inside, and that would actually be a really cool thing to do right now because you may know that lettuce, when it gets too hot, it bolts. Then I got an infestation of white flies. The thing about white flies is that they're small. They will go right between the tentacles on a sundew or drosera. They aren't bothered by my pitcher plants. They're too small to even trigger my Venus flytraps. But I was like, there's gotta be a carnivorous plant that will eat and control white flies. And so I looked online and they said a lot of orchid growers and orchid breeders, they rely on butterworts or Pinguicula to control white flies in their greenhouses. And I thought, I got to get me one of those. So right here I've got this box from California Carnivores. Thanks, California Carnivores. And in it is my very first Pinguicula. I just thought it would be fun to open this with you and talk about some basic Pinguicula care. Opening my first Pinguicula. Very excited. And let's see, we've got oh, what a lovely card. So this says, I got Pinguicula SP Alfred Lau number 13, and it's bare root. You gotta appreciate California Carnivore's card here because it's really pretty. And in here I've got the plant itself. Looks like they've got it wrapped in damp tissue. I'd like to see what else is in this box. Is there anything else? There's nothing. Wow. Bare root indeed. Well, okay, since we are mixing some substrate from scratch this time, I think it's appropriate to talk about this plant. So this Alfred Lau number 13 Pinguicula was discovered in Mexico in the wild by Alfred Lau. It could be a natural hybrid of Pinguicula gigantea. So even though it's probably adorable right now, even though it's adorable right now, when it grows up, it's going to have a diameter of about 8 inches. The leaves are going to be semi-erect. They're going to grow to about 4 inches long each. That's why I picked a pot this big for such a tiny plant, if you're wondering. It's not just madness, although it's also madness. This plant, it does like a soil mix of 1 part peat moss to 3 parts perlite. My standard mix is 2 parts peat moss to 1 part sand and 1 part perlite. So what I'm thinking is if I do a 50-50 mix of this in my pot, that will take us into the right neighborhood. And yeah, I'm going to be sloppy about it because I don't have things set up to not be sloppy about it. Let's pull this out, this little bare root Pinguicula here. What do its roots look like? We actually oh no, it's in a little bit of substrate. I'm going to want to give this water right away. Oh, the leaf fell off. I'm going to take this leaf and poke it in the soil. And maybe I will get some more. Right, so here's my little ping in its pot, and as it grows up, it's going to actually fit the pot. Let's grab a little water and water this in. Now I like to water my carnivorous plants using a squirt bottle, and the reason I like to do this is not because it's tedious, but it is. But it slows me down. It slows down how quickly I'm adding the water, and that means that it has time to actually start being absorbed by the soil before it comes out the bottom. So I just get a more even saturation of the soil this way. So that's why that's going on. Now once you have your Pinguicula or ping in a pot, once you got your ping in a pot, that's more fun to say, you do not want to top water it like this. So this initial watering, I'm going to do it and it's going to be fine. But if you top water on the regular, you risk rot on your leaves. So what you want is you want to have your well-draining soil, like we've just mixed up here, And then you want to bottom water it using the tray method, just like you would do with a sundew or a Venus flytrap. Now these guys can actually handle a little bit higher mineral content in their water, but I mean, just a little, not a lot. With these guys you can get up to 50 ppm of mineral content in your water. And that's really, it's not a ton. Most tap water is still going to be too salty for these little guys. So use distilled or RO water if you can. Now this particular cultivar is able to tolerate some cool temperatures. So it'll be fine in my windowsills because they actually get pretty chilly in the winter. But it's not going to handle frost, so we can't let it freeze. As far as light for this Pinguicula, it's going to need dappled to part sun. We've already gone over the soil mix. So my goal with this is that it's gonna eat some whiteflies in my house because apparently I've got some. But also, these will produce beautiful flowers. This particular cultivar, all the pictures that I found had kind of a lavender to light purple flower. But Pinguicula in general are going to have, I think I've even seen some with almost magenta flowers, but they generally range from purple through blue to white. And in terms of carnivorous plants, these guys have what I consider to be the second most beautiful flowers. The most beautiful flowers being those of the Sarracenia or American pitcher plant. So, but second most is a lot because I love flowers. This is very slightly in the future, Dustin speaking, and there was a really cool detail, like possibly one of the more interesting details about Pinguicula that I forgot to include in my notes, at least this type. Okay, so most of the time when we're talking about tropical plants, we don't worry about dormancy because they live in the tropics and it's a paradise and everything's hunky-dory. But with Mexican pinks, they do have kind of a dormancy period, but it's not the same. It's not like when, so with my Venus flytraps, when they go dormant, they need to lose all their leaves and be cold. Same with my American pitcher plants. But these Pinguicula, they don't need to get as cold. And their dormancy period isn't really, it's not actually a dormancy period. They've adapted for a dry period in their habitat. So what you'll see is the carnivorous leaves will be replaced with succulent leaves. And while the plant has succulent leaves, you want to water it very little and allow it to dry out a bit because it has adapted for its dry period and it needs to be dry. And that is its dormancy. And then when it changes back, when it starts to regrow its carnivorous leaves, which are thinner, well, they look like the ones that are there now. That is it breaking its dormancy, and you need to start tray watering it again. So during the dormancy, you're just not tray watering, you're allowing it to dry out a bit between waterings. And that's the difference. So anyway, I'm excited to have this little ping added to my carnivorous plant collection. If you have carnivorous plants and you want to talk about them, you should do that in my comments. If you have any questions about Pinguicula or pings that I didn't cover in this video, put those in the comments as well. Or if you have something that you know that I didn't cover and you think I should have, pop that in the comments. Help somebody out. And hey, thank you for joining me in my garden today. I hope you have a wonderful time in Iran.